Hello and welcome to a new episode of Story of Success, in which we interview prominent Egyptian figures. We'll be back after the break, so stay with us. Our guest today is a successful scientist who was born in southern Egypt, and through perseverance and hard work, he became one of Egypt's most prominent scientists in the field of electrochemistry and renewable energy. Today I'm happy to have with me Associate Professor Dr. Ayman Nafady. Dr. Ayman, welcome with us.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you about your interest in chemistry. When did it start?
Well, my interest in chemistry starts actually back in high school, and that was one of the subjects that I really enjoyed in studying chemistry. And that time I was really getting the highest score of all of my grades was in chemistry. The fascination of the field starts by trying to do even experiments at home, trying to see if I can understand whatever the teachers used to teach us at that time, and then developed along the years when I first joined the Faculty of Science, and I went there with the hope that I can get into the chemistry department, and I didn't know that it is only in the second year where you can start majoring in chemistry. So when I joined the Faculty of Science, I went there and I was trying to get to chemistry department, and they said it's not from the first year. You have to study the natural science group, which is physics, chemistry, mathematics, and then you can specialize in the second year in chemistry. And then it becomes more interesting when you get to the lab in the chemistry department with having the chemistry as a major, where I started to see reactions and experiments on a daily basis, enjoy being in the lab for a couple hours, and then the real enjoyment and fascination of chemistry happened after my graduation from getting my bachelor degree at that time. Yeah.
Now, when you graduated in 1992, actually, you were appointed as a teacher at the faculty or at the Department of Chemistry.
Yes.
Now, what happened at that time?
Well, by law, it is like the Egyptian law allows the first and the second student to be appointed as demonstrators. So being the first on the class, and I had the option even to choose what area of chemistry I could pursue my studies on. And so in 1992, I became a demonstrator of chemistry, and then I choose inorganic chemistry with analytical to be my field of expertise. So I start to do my own research in chemistry onto that major.
Now, would you explain to us a bit more about the term inorganic chemistry?
Well, for many people, I think the word of they understand mostly organic because the source of it is coming from carbon, and inorganic chemistry it's a big major of chemistry, and under that there is many other sub majors, I would say. And basically it deals with how inorganic compounds, which means salts, for example, like sodium chloride is one of the examples that we use in our daily life, and it is one of the inorganic compounds. Normally these kind of molecules, nowadays we start to see that they have a potential application into many kind of technology, and many applications start to appear into that field of chemistry.
Now, you did a research which was related to the novel electrochemistry, and it was related to cobalt. So what was that about?
Well, actually, they called me now I'm Cobalt Man, and that means, or that stands for the fact that I always have a good luck with cobalt. So started with my master degree in doing research in cobalt, and then develop that interest more and more during my PhD. I'll talk about this later on. And even after that, with my postdoctoral research fellow, I choose many metals, but the most luck always comes with cobalt. So in my master degree, we prepared a new type of molecules, and these molecules actually containing cobalt as a metal, and it has a coordination sphere of some of the ligands. And the ligand normally it is an inorganic compounds that can complex or form typical type of compound between the metal and the ligand itself. This material actually we found that it can have an application to be used in probably water splitting. And water splitting means we can actually split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then based on that, we can make a hydrogen source of energy, where that's the start of our interest in renewable energy with the generation of hydrogen from water.
Now, so you're talking about renewable energy, and that's from water. What other sources, like when we talk about renewable energy, so what are the other sources of such a type?
So renewable energy is a new area. We're now getting to the traditional type of fuel that we use, like petroleum sources, for example. It's going for depletion. And what we're trying to do is to find an alternative ways to generate fuel that we can use. One concept of renewable energy is we're trying to generate, let's say, an electricity from a source that is renewable, which means something like sunlight, for example, we can use for this. And also, if we can generate hydrogen fuel, and now we find Japan, for example, they have some new cars where it depends on hydrogen as a fuel instead of petrol or gas. So this kind of technology, it is now start to have an impact on the area and in the environment, and so many scientists in the world now, they working hard to find different ways of how we can generate this kind of renewable energy. The important one that we find probably in Egypt that can be useful is the sunlight, because we have here, so the solar energy is really an important point, an area that we need actually to develop more of this kind of technology, so we can use it, especially when it becomes very hard to keep the other sources of electricity.
Now that brings a question about the cells itself. Now, to produce solar energy, usually it requires sensitive cells, and that's very sophisticated technology. Can we afford it?
I think like any technology in the beginning, it becomes very expensive. More research needs to be done to make it cheaper, and then the companies start to compete together. and get, this kind of competition will actually make the product cheaper. I would say in Australia, for example, it is by law for any new building, they have to have solar panels established into their houses, otherwise they didn't get the license. If we take this kind of approach in Egyptian environment, I think we can definitely push forward the opportunity of using these solar panels and cell systems to generate an alternative way for electricity, and that actually will minimize the pressure that we have right now in electricity as a source.
Are they expensive?
I would say it is expensive because it's just at the start of the technology, but it is affordable as well. Like you can definitely make easy, or for many people they can afford having this. And the good thing about that, it is clean. It's not costing much. So once you already have this kind of system established into your house, so you can be safe and you don't have to spend any extra money for probably 5-10 years. Yeah. I would say in my experience in Australia, the electricity company, to encourage people to have this kind of system, they actually make the use of electricity that you use, that you generate into your house, and put it back to the traffic of the electricity. They get it into a higher price rate compared to what they supply you. So that means you can make money out of that, and if you don't use much of your electricity that you generate.
Well, you've mentioned several times your trip to Australia. So would you talk to us about going to Australia? Was it study or work?
Australia was a very nice experience, and it actually was for work. So I finished my PhD in chemistry from University of Vermont in USA, and I was lucky actually with even my supervisor there, and we may have a chance to talk about this later. But in Australia, it was a dream actually that came true. While I was in US, everyone is just speaking nicely about the lifestyle there and how everything is quiet and clean, and it is less pressure compared to US. So I had that kind of attitude that I really want to have a chance and opportunity to work there. And I was lucky. I applied to do my postdoctoral research fellow there. And at that time, I had only the hope that it could be for 1 or 2 years. But it ended up being 7 years, and then we become citizen, and we stay living there because we enjoy the environment there.
Now, how do you find the scientific research in Australia?
Well, the scientific research in Australia, it is first it's environmental friendly. They give us more freedom, more opportunity to do work, especially after you're finishing your PhD, so you're not stuck much to your boss or your mentor, and you need to develop your skills of research. And my supervisor, he was one of the leading authority in the field of electrochemistry, and his name is Alan Bond. Actually, it's a big name in that field. He was, believing God on me and in the opportunity that I can really progress that area of research. And during that time, especially at the beginning, I again started with working in cobalt. And we have that cobalt with another compounds. They call it TCNQ. And this kind of metal organic framework, it's like polymeric material. But the interesting thing about this material, it has a lot of technological applications. So we can use this in biosensors, we can use this in fuels, we can use this as a source for magnetism. And based on that, we published actually many papers, and my career started to be shaped based on my expertise in this area. Especially we're going to nanoscience and nanotechnology into this field.
What's the most memorable event or thing that happened to you while you were in Australia?
Actually, in Australia, it was a lot of situations happening. I would say we had a Japanese group that came to our lab for training, and I've never had a chance to work with any Japanese before.
Mm-hmm.
I know they are very unique in their way of research.
Mm-hmm.
But for us as a chemist, you stand in the lab, you're doing some experiments. It could take time, but they were very, very careful about even putting solution, so drop by drop, and spending so much time. So that for me, it is a bit of extra caring that's not needed. But always, different expertise and different people coming to the lab. I worked with so many different groups, so that really generate a rich environment even in my way of thinking, getting more experience because of the way that you interact with so many people and different cultures and from different backgrounds.
Doctor, you mentioned that you've been to the United States as well. So would you talk to us about your trip to the United States?
Yes, this trip was my first trip to be overseas actually, and when I talk about U.S., I thought U.S. would look like New York City, like skyscrapers, clean streets, and everything is bright and shiny. And one of the fun is. My supervisor used to say Vermont is one of the most beautiful city in the U.S. And when I first arrived to Boston, and then I had a relative there that took us to Vermont. Probably it's around 3 hours drive. And in the way, all I see is just the trees, mountains, and until we reached to the city. And it was just a small, type of city. It's like a town. So that was a bit of, surprise to me that I couldn't find these, skyscrapers and high buildings. And so I went to him in the first day and I said, I thought, I'm gonna see some of the, this high buildings and skyscrapers. And there is nothing. It's more like my hometown. And he said, well, just be patient, and you will see that this city is one of the most beautiful cities in U.S. And actually it was, because after being there for a couple years, I realized that I'm in one of the top and safest state in U.S. So that was the first bit of surprise to me. Then when the other thing is, which is I learned from him, is giving our background that you have to call everyone professor or doctor. So I went to my supervisor and actually trying to say, first day I just say Professor William Geiger. Next day I say Dr. Bell. So he found this is a bit of confusing to me, you know. So he said to me, Ayman, can you call me Bill unless it is a troublesome for you?
Mhm.
And since that time, I find that calling people without nicknames or job titles is actually a decent way of making friends. You feel very close to him, and we were very good friends, and I learned a lot from him actually during my couple years I spent there.
How many years did you stay in the United States?
It's 3 years and a half in total. That was part of my program, and when I actually had a scholarship from here, from Egypt, for 2 years, and my supervisor found me, very hard worker, so he supported me for another 1.5 years. Actually, it was 2 years, but the Egyptian government they didn't approve the extension for more than 1.5 years, so we end up 3 years and a half.
Now, what was the most important thing you learned in the United States?
Well, in personal development, like of my skills, um, we really have so many different things that we look at it from our Egyptian side different than from US. So one of the interesting things I learned, and I still even telling everyone about it, is to be self-confident, you know. Especially like I did my master here in Egypt, but we didn't do much of a presentation, stand in front of people and talk. So that was nicely developed in US. And a habit that I had actually, when I give a presentation and someone starts to ask me, I normally, once I hit that, I know the question, I just, without giving him a time to finish, I quickly answer. That was my habit, always in every presentation I do this. So my supervisor took me aside in one day and he said to me, Ayman, I want to tell you something. So I said, what? He said, your presentation was great, but I want you to give anyone asking you a question a chance to finish his question. Why? He said, because sometimes you get even the answer included in the question itself, you know. So, and he said, once he finished, you take a deep breath, and then you say, well, and then you start to answer the question. So I really got this, and every time I'm in a conference or anywhere, give me a lot of confidence because of this kind of things that I learned from him.
Doctor, you had published many researches. Among them, there were researches about electrochemical materials with or low polarity.
Yes.
Yeah, what does
Okay.
that mean?
Yes. This was part of my PhD, and actually, we had, a luck to develop and even to discover new phenomenon that wasn't even discovered before. Um, Again, back to my mentor. That's where I learned a lot from him. Um, so when I first joined the group, normally in US you need at least 6 months to adjust to the system. Then you start to get to the lab and do experiments. But in my first day, I have that, um, ambition, and I have that desire to do more work. So in next day, I said to him, I want to get into the lab, I want to do experiments and this. So he said to me, Ayman, just wait, go find an apartment, make your family established, and then you can come and work at the lab. Um, so after couple weeks and start to do work in the lab, this is one of the funny situation as well. So I did the experiment 3 times, and every experiment I did, I normally write the graphs and prepare it and in a way that I can present to him. So in my first meeting with him, I had 3 copies of the same experiment. So I said, I did this one, and then I did it again and again. So he smiled and looked at me and he said, well, I know you've done it the first time, so why you repeat it again? I said, well, it's part of our habit of doing research. We want to make sure that your result is true. Whatever you discover is a rare. He said, well, I want to tell you that time is money, and you spend almost a week to do this experiment 3 times. Not only that, but also, the cost of chemicals, equipments, and everything. So you waste so many things. I want you to do it once, and that's it, to make sure everything is perfect, and do it once. And that really was a message, that you have to be, yes, accurate, but why you should repeat again and again, unless there is some discrepancies or differences in the results. The other thing that our education lack here is your supervisor just wants you to do the experiment, not to explain the result. So this is what I did. So I actually gave him the experiment, the details of the experiment, but not explaining what's going on with the reaction, with the chemistry, why this is happening. So he actually came to me and he said, Ayman, well, I want to tell you that your handling, how you do experiment is that level, but your thinking is this level. What we want to do while you are here is pushing this up. So this way now I can send to Egypt back a very nice and very strong electrochemist, not only how to do experiment, but also how to explain the results and get something out of it.
Well, Dr. Ayman, there are so many things I'd like still to ask you about, and we will be continuing this interview in the next episode. And now I'd like to thank you very much, Associate Professor of Electrochemistry and Renewable Energy, Dr. Ayman Nafady, for this interview.
Well, thank you very much for hosting me, and I hope you got something really enjoyable.
Oh, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was Associate Professor Dr. Ayman Nafady, Professor of Renewable Energy as well as Electrochemistry, and we've learned from him about why he fell in love with chemistry, about his PhD and his master's degree and their topic, as well as his trips to Australia and the United States and what he benefited from these trips. And now we will be wrapping up this episode of Story of Success, and we will be continuing with the professor to learn more about the rest of his story of success in the next episode. Until then, it's goodbye.